After the Battle of Buxar, the company appointed residents in Indian states. These residents were political or commercial agents, and their job was to serve the interest of the company. Through these residents, the company began to interfere in the internal matters of Indian states. The company rarely launched a direct military attack on an unknown territory, but it used a variety of political, economic, and diplomatic methods to extend its influence before annexing an Indian kingdom. Soon, the company forced the states into a subsidiary alliance. So let us see the process of annexation of Indian states by the East India Company from 1757 to 1857. Subsidiary alliance means Indian rulers were not allowed to have their independent armed forces. They were to be protected by the company, but had to pay for the subsidiary forces that the company was supposed to maintain for the purpose of this protection. If the Indian rulers failed to make the payment, then part of their territory was taken away as a penalty. Awadh and Hyderabad were forced to cede their territories in this manner. Whenever the company saw a threat to its political or economic interest, it resorted to direct military confrontation. In this regard, we can give example of Mysore. Mysore had become powerful under rulers like Hyder Ali and his son Tipu Sultan. Mysore controlled the profitable trade of the Malabar coast, where the company purchased pepper and cardamom. In 1785, Tipu Sultan stopped the export of sandalwood, pepper and cardamom through the parts of his kingdom and did not allow local merchants from trading with the company. This infuriated the company. The company fought 4 wars with Mysore. Only in the last, the Battle of Srirangapatnam, the company ultimately won a victory. Tipu Sultan was killed defending his capital Srirangapatnam. War with the Marathas. The company from the late 18th century was planning to destroy Maratha power. The Third Battle of Panipat in 1761, the Marathas were defeated and their dream of ruling from Delhi was shattered. It also led to the division of Maratha Confederacy. 4 chiefs ruled from 4 centers under a Peshwa based in Pune. They were divided into many states under different chiefs or sardars belonging to dynasties such as Scindia, Holkar, Gaikwad and Bhonsle. These chiefs were held together under a Peshwa or principal minister who became its effective military and administrative head based in Pune. Marathas were indulged in a series of Anglo-Maratha wars. The first war ended in 1782 with the Treaty of Salbai. There was no clear victor. The second Anglo-Maratha war was fought on different fronts, resulting in the British gaining Orissa and the territories north of the Yamuna River, including Agra and Delhi. Finally, the Third Anglo-Maratha War of 1817-19 crushed Maratha power. From the early 19th century, the company pursued an aggressive policy of territorial expansion. Under Governor General Lord Hastings, a new policy of paramountcy or supremacy was initiated. The company now claimed that its authority was paramount or supreme. Following this policy, the company annexed several states. In order to protect its interest, it was justified in annexing or threatening to annex any Indian kingdom. In this process, they had great challenges also. For example, when the British tried to annex the small state of Kittur in Karnataka today, Rani Channamma took to arms and led an anti-British resistance movement. She was arrested in 1824 and died in prison in 1829. But Rayanna, a poor Chowkidar of Sangoli in Kittur, carried on the resistance. With popular support, he destroyed many British camps and records. He was caught and hanged by the British in 1830. In the late 1830s, the East India Company became worried about Russia. It imagined that Russia might expand across Asia and enter India from the northwest. The British now wanted to secure their control over the northwest. They fought a prolonged war with Afghanistan between 1838 and 1842 and established indirect company rule there. Sindh was taken over in 1843. Next in line was Punjab. But the presence of Maharaja Ranjit Singh held back the company. After his death in 1839, two prolonged wars were fought with the Sikh kingdom. Ultimately, in 1849, Punjab was annexed. The final wave of annexations occurred under Lord Dalhousie. The doctrine of lapse is a policy introduced by Lord Dalhousie. It declared that if an Indian ruler of a subsidiary state dies without having a natural heir or a male heir to inherit the throne, his state would lapse into East India Company Empire. That means it became part of company territory. The states annexed were Satara, Sambalpur, Udaipur, Nagpur and Jhansi. You have heard about Rani Lakshmi Bai who fought against British. In 1856, the company took over Oudh. This time, the British had an added argument. They said they were obliged by duty to take over Oudh in order to free the people from the misgovernment of the Nawab. Enraged by the humiliating way in which the Nawab was deposed, the people of Oudh joined the great revolt that broke out in 1857. Warren Hastings played a significant role in the expansion of company power. During his time, the company had acquired power in Bengal, Bombay and Madras. British territories were broadly divided into administrative units called presidencies. There were 3 presidencies: Bengal, Madras and Bombay. Each was ruled by a governor. From 1772, a new system of justice was established. According to the new system, each district needed to have 2 courts, a criminal court and a civil court. The Brahmin Pandits have different interpretations of local laws based on different schools of the Dharma Shastra. To bring uniformity, in 1775, 11 Pandits were asked to compile a digest of Hindu laws. By 1778, a code of Muslim laws was also compiled for the benefit of European judges. Under the Regulating Act of 1773, a new Supreme Court was established, while a Court of Appeal, the Sadr Nizam Adalat, was also set up at Calcutta. The collector was the principal figure in an Indian district. His job was to collect revenue and taxes and maintain law and order in his district with the help of judges, police officers and others. The company army in India, colonial rule brought some new ideas of administration and reform. The Mughal army, composed of cavalry or savars, trained soldiers on horseback, and infantry, that is paidal or foot soldiers. The army of the Mughal was dominated by cavalry. In the 18th century, changes occurred when Mughal successor states like Awadh and Benares started recruiting peasants into their armies and training them as professional soldiers. The East India Company adopted the same method, which came to be known as the Sepoy Army. The Indian word Sipahi means soldier. In the early 19th century, the British began to develop a uniform military culture. Soldiers were subjected to European style training, drill, and discipline that regulated their life far more than before. Often, this created problems since caste and community feelings were ignored in building a force of professional soldiers. What did the Sepoy feel, or how did they react to the changes in their lives and their identity? The revolt of 1857 gives us a glimpse into the world of the Sepoys. We will learn about it in another chapter. Thus, the East India Company was transformed from a trading company to territorial colonial power. In the early 19th century, new steam technology arrived, and steamships reduced the journey time to 3 weeks, enabling more Britishers and their families to come to a far-off country like India. By 1857, the company came to exercise direct rule over about 63% of the Indian territory and 78% of the population of the Indian subcontinent.